when I get home, am I giving more to my ministry or job or anything else than I'm giving to my family?
Welcome to the Christian Leader Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Franklin, and I've been in pastoral leadership at the Pentecostals of Alexandria for over 20 years, and I'm an executive coach helping Christian leaders grow with clarity, confidence, and balance. And if you're leading in ministry or a business, then you likely know just how easy it is to get scattered, to lose your focus, and to start feeling ineffective. I've definitely been there myself. And that's why I created the Christian Leader Self-Assessment. It's free, and in just 10 minutes, it'll show you exactly how to gain clarity and confidence as a leader. Go to ryanfranklin.org or click the link in the description to take the assessment today. And now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Christian Leader Made Simple show. Again, I'm your host, Ryan Franklin, and today we're talking about one of the most overlooked leadership blind spots, especially in ministry, and that's rhythm. Not productivity, not passion, but rhythm. For a lot of pastors and church leaders, things don't just fall apart because they stop loving people or they stop working hard. They fall apart because their rhythm of life becomes unsustainable. And you're going to love my guest today. My guest is the UPCI National Youth President, the one and only DJ Hill. DJ and I are close friends, so I happen to have a little bit of an inside view of his life. And from my perspective, he's an incredible husband to Natalie. He's a father of 3 beautiful daughters. And before joining the national youth team in 2021, he and I were connected, and he served in the Georgia District Youth Ministries for 5 years, and as the evangelism pastor at Atlanta West Pentecostal Church. DJ is a graduate of Urshan College and Urshan Graduate School of Theology. He has also authored a book that I want him to tell you about called A Celebration of Creation, an apostolic view of identity and gender, such an important topic. He carries a strong passion for soul winning, disciple making, and developing the next generation of apostolic leaders. And with a young family and so many demands from national youth work, DJ's navigating real ministry pressure in a difficult season of his life. And so I've asked him to come on today to talk about what he's doing to build a rhythm that can sort of bend in these pressures without breaking. It's about staying emotionally present under pressure and recognizing those crazy blind spots before they actually cost you something at home or in leadership. So DJ, I'm so glad that you agreed to talk about something that is so sensitive today in your life. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, what an honor it is to be back with you, Brother Franklin. Ryan, you're a dear friend of mine and my family. My wife and I love you. I'm so thankful that you were able to be at North American Youth Congress. That brought me great confidence, you and Angie and your kids, and what you've meant in my life. You know, so many great things that's come out of my life the last few years has come from your specific relationship and leadership and example. So I honor you, and I'm excited to be back on this podcast. This is something that I love and regularly look to. I just listened to the Robinettes. I obviously listen to Brother Trimble's on media. That I preached on media in the Atlantic District. So thank you for being a voice to leaders in the United Pentecostal Church movement and abroad. I honor you, and I'm excited to be back on.
Thank you, DJ. That means a ton. And if you're okay, I'm going to call you what I always call you, and that's DJ and not Brother Hill, and you
Please
call
do.
me Ryan.
Yes, sir, for sure.
But I do want to say publicly that this past National Youth Congress, this was my first. I believe it or not, I had never been to a youth congress, and my goodness, it was amazing. And
It was amazing.
You and your executive team, Jeremy and Kyle, your staff, all of the volunteers that were involved. Wow. It was like one of the best conferences I've ever been to as far as the experience. It was just to be in a room with that many apostolic Christians.
36,000. And it's crazy to think 11 staff members put that on. But we believe that God honored our intentionality as an act of worship. And so God really did show up. It was special.
Yeah, it was very special. And before we get into the questions, I also want to mention that because a lot of people are well, really nobody would be aware of this. I've told you before, but I have an avatar for who when I'm writing my book, when I wrote my book, when I'm writing other things that I write, when I'm doing, even some of these podcasts, solo podcasts and all, I have an avatar that I'm writing to. And in my mind, I know, how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
33.
So you're 33 now. I have in my mind 29-year-old DJ Hill with one child and working as an evangelism pastor at Atlanta West. You were my avatar as I wrote my book and I recorded the courses in my course. It's relative to anybody, but you're the person that I wanted to reach, and just about everything I do is geared to that. Now it absolutely touches the older generation, and
Definitely.
anything in between. But if I can help change a young youth pastor's life, or a an evangelism pastor, someone that is in their early to late 20s or early 30s, if I can help change the direction of their life with some of this content and maybe put some thoughts in their head that can make them have a more productive and raise the lid off of their leadership, then that's what I want to do. And
Yeah.
so I speak to you all the time, DJ. At least
Yeah.
at least the old you.
Yeah. Well, you've done it. There a lot of whatever you would call and define as success, but for sure health has come from our conversations and what you've instilled in my family and I. So I honor you for that. And I know on the general youth committee made up of our district youth presidents, your book floats around, your podcast is talked about in circles. So you're respected. So anybody that's listening to this, maybe this is being reposted on my social media and you haven't connected with Ryan Franklin yet, or this might be your first podcast, go back and listen to these. Because if you think that my life is as any impact to the kingdom of God as I do my best to serve him with any talents or abilities he gives me, right there next to it is the fingerprints that Ryan Franklin has had on my life. And so whether that's youth, whether that's music, evangelism, whatever God's calling you to do, if you want to be better, I know from personal experience that partnering with Ryan Franklin will just multiply your talents and abilities in so many ways. So get involved in this Christian leadership blueprint. It is a blueprint that has proven so many leaders that you've seen on this podcast, but me specifically, that I have followed the blueprint and it has drastically changed my life.
I'm humbled to hear you say that, and we need to move on because
Let's do it.
Thank you, DJ, for those kind
You're
words.
welcome.
And I've had you're an extremely talented person. Not only that, you have deep and mature character within you, and that's what's gotten you to where you are. Not me, but it's I'm just glad that I had a very small little portion of input into your life, and you don't know how much I value that little small portion. It's been a highlight of my life, and we can continue on as friends, and
Yes, sir.
and continue on in this podcast, and let's talk about
Let's do
rhythms.
it.
Let's see if
let's get into a rhythm of podcast.
Exactly. Now I do sound like a bullfrog today because I don't know what's maybe it's after because of the times stuff that may be floating around. I don't know. I feel fine, but I sound terrible. So hopefully my voice holds out in this podcast. But we're just going to dive deep quick. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
You're in a season that a lot of pastors and student pastors and church leaders are either in right now or they're heading towards. And I don't mean positional, but you know what I mean. You have 3 young daughters. You're really very active in ministry. You have real responsibilities all around you. So looking back on those last few years, I'm just curious, diving deep here, what leadership blind spots around rhythm or emotional health has this season sort of exposed that maybe you didn't expect?
That's a great opening question. And I've reflected on this. I would say that the biggest blind spot that I have found for myself, and even thinking about peers as we've talked about trying to grow in this rhythm with young kids and growing ministries and responsibilities and life, would be that work or talent does not solve it. Being young in your early 20s, you think just ambition of, man, I'll just stay up all night. I'll pull all nighters. I'll just figure it out. And I'll throw all my giftings, all my talent, all my hard work at it. That only can get you so far. I would equate it to basketball. I love the sport of basketball. You can just keep working at it without getting the right mechanics or rhythm in this context that I would use. You're not going to become a better basketball player. You're just going to wear yourself out, and actually potentially even get worse because you're going to develop unhealthy mechanics in basketball. So for me, I would say the biggest blind spot that I had coming out of Bible college, entering into evangelism, and then eventually getting on staff at Atlanta West Pentecostal Church, getting married is, oh, just working hard doesn't solve it. It doesn't get me further as a disciple of Jesus Christ, a husband, a father, or a minister. I don't get better by just working hard. It's the old phrase, practice makes perfect. It's actually perfect practice makes perfect, because I could practice a golf swing and not get better at basketball. I have to practice what I'm trying to get better at to actually get better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you think about that practice, and when we talked about this episode, you used the phrase rhythm that bends without breaking. And I love that. That's a neat way to put it, because rhythm is never perfect. Never.
Yeah.
You've got to bend with it. So I love the way you describe that. I'm gonna steal that in the future, by the way.
Good.
But I want to hear more about that. What's going on in your head about it? So before we go there, I want to know what you learned the hard way about rhythms that look good on paper, but sometimes they fail under real life pressure.
So just in our context here, serving at UPCI Youth Ministries, God allows us to have some open doors due to our position, but then also our giftings. I understand that balance of getting to preach out. So let's say, when I moved here October 2020, my wife and I were young. We got all this energy. We're about to have our first child, and calls are coming in. Hey, you're the new director of promotions. I'd love for you to come preach here. We have this youth rally here. Well, on paper, that looks like it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then living it out where our daughter is staying up, doing the cluster feeding and waking up every hour, and then you're like half there, and then you have to show up somewhere to preach or travel somewhere or bring your child in the car seat, and then staying in the hotel, they're not napping good, which means you're not resting good, which means you're not fully yourself. So on paper, it felt really good. Like, oh, I'm only gone twice a month. But our first general conference here, I preached, it was in Indiana, and I preached the Sunday after, right after general conference. Horrible. It seemed good on paper. I was like, oh, Saturday, we'll just hang out at the hotel all day. We got one kid. We were exhausted. I remember in the middle of service, I looked at my wife, Natalie, and said, I will never preach the Sunday after general conference again. I don't have no idea what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But in February, when I was asked, that made sense. The same is true for spiritual disciplines. We've talked about this before, where I had a regiment before we had kids, and then that regiment shot because Kalea, our oldest, did not care. She wanted to eat. She wanted a diaper change. She wanted to be rocked. And so my rhythm got messed up. And I was so hard on making sure it had to fit. It has to be this way. It has to be this way. And it would ultimately just break because I wasn't able to be flexible and allow it to be bent and say, last night was a miserable night. So instead of praying at 6 a.m. like I normally do, I'm going to push back to 7:30 and sleep in. And that's okay. That's not it breaking. That's me being flexible or bending to the circumstances around. That's me looking ahead at our calendar and say, you know what? Though it might look good on paper, I want to create more boundaries or a better rhythm so that I can prepare for camp, so that I might not be preaching as much in May, so that I could have more fasting time and prayer time and study time so that I go into camp fresh and ready and prepared versus I'm living in May like it's a regular month, not realizing 2 weeks of back-to-back camp is coming up in June.
Yeah.
But that's that bending. I can't get caught in being too hard on the schedule or too loose to find a good rhythm that works in each season of life.
That makes a lot of sense. And going back to your illustration on after General Conference you preached, it's one thing to recognize that, but it's another thing to actually, okay, next General Conference, I'm gonna block the weekend out. I'm not gonna It's another thing. It's one thing to learn to get the lesson. It's another thing to shift things and bend to not allow that to happen again. Just curious. Think back on that day, and I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but think back on that day and even the days following that. You probably likely had to come back to the office and jump back into work after General Conference. You were depleted totally, and then you poured out even more in that service.
Yep.
How long did it take you to recover? What did you see come out of you that was ugly that you didn't like in the coming days, or were you able to reel all that back?
Yeah, no, for sure. That Monday, if not Tuesday, I was back in the office answering the hundreds of emails that normally come through, pushing projects. Our first general conference, you have our first youth ministry training event coming up. So many things happening right after. So I jumped head back into it, exhausted, trying to figure out things. So not being able to be critical thinker while in the office because I didn't have a day of rest or a Sabbath of a time to kind of get recharged. But more than that, once again, that kind of goes to the first thing. Oh, you just work hard. I could have done that. And I probably did that first week where you just, drink some, suck it up, get some grit about you and just keep going. So it might not have shown in the office as much, but it showed at home because I didn't give my wife a chance to rest.
Yeah.
She has a different social stamina than I'm extroverted, so people fuel me. I didn't give her a chance. And then she's at home with a newborn. And I'm back at work, which is something that fuels me and I can just kind of push through. She doesn't have a time to rest because Kalea isn't eating her and things are going on in life and her involvement at the church with music. So I would say it did take a couple of weeks to kind of recalibrate because I really owed her time. A principle that I try to live by and apply now is if my wife loses a day, she wins the week. If she loses the week, she wins the month. If she loses the month, she wins the year. So, for instance, this year we're taking a couple extra vacations. We've been saving up for a few years to be able to financially support that and be wise stewards. But because of Youth Congress and what July meant to our family, where it's long nights and it's exhaustion, and then really 2 weeks where I'm kind of out of the picture, I am giving her back that time, though you technically can't. So Move the Mission call-in night, I'm there all night. So I make sure the next week to take a couple extra days off. So what I should have done is after that general conference, take a couple days and just have family time. Instead, I robbed my family of that and it was felt in the home. She was tired. I was tired. Our stress probably showed. We weren't communicating good. And instead of creating a good rhythm that could bend, it definitely showed at the home. And that's where, to me, probably my first year or two to be vulnerable that I have regrets is on paper it looked good and I might have been good like dealing with it and I can maintain that workflow, but it's not healthy relationally to friends or to our marriage or definitely to our daughters.
Yeah. You said something as you were speaking that really stood out to me, and that's you mentioned social stamina. You're a high extrovert, which social stamina is different. Social stamina is more of an interpersonal thing. But you're a high extrovert and you have 100% social stamina, which means that you can keep going and going and going with people and you don't burn out. Like you can bounce around to people or you can sit in the corner and go deep with people. And that's an amazing gift that you have, that you bring to your position and, the environments that you frequent. But your wife is more like me. She has
Yeah.
much lower social stamina. I forget what it is, but it's much lower than yours. And so
Yeah.
she goes through, very similar to me, through a general conference, and she's burnt at the end
Yeah.
of that. I mean, like, she's got to withdraw, and it's healthy for her to withdraw at that
Yep.
point, to be able to kind of catch her breath. And it's important at that point to be able to to re-energize with the closest relationships around her, which would be you and her kids, maybe her parents or something.
Yep.
But anything you want to say to that? I know I just said a lot there, but
Yeah, no, I think that's where the premise of our conversation, bending not breaking, is.
mhm,
I've had to realize 5 days of general conference, we're there really 7 days setting up, tearing down, that we have to be very good at communicating. Where's her social stamina? What's going on? And instead of me breaking her by saying, no, show up to everything, stay late, let's party, let's preach after, let's do it, which even someone with a high social stamina and extrovert, all that, that's not even a good rhythm
you
for
still
me to
have a
just
limit.
live in that.
You
Yeah,
still
to
have a
just
limit.
live in that forever. Nor is it healthy for me to push her my way or for me to just shut down and
Yeah,
not be around people. So that's where that bending happens is, we've learned now to communicate, to say, okay, how are we feeling? Let's talk well in advance and create a rhythm of, okay, Salt Lake City, Utah, do we want to go a little bit early? Do we want to stay a little bit late? Really, there's no time for meals, unfortunately. We try to do quick coffee with a couple people, you being one of them, where I just tag in for like an hour
mhm,
in the midst of all the meetings. But that allows her to have her time with her mom and dad, who are amazing, the Warrens, but allows me to still operate. So that's where that bending happens. And that's flexible depending on the day, depending on what it is that we're
yeah,
going to, or what appearance I need to show up to.
yeah. And that's really good. And I also, because I feel what she feels, the low social
Yeah.
stamina. I want to point out as well that doesn't mean that I want to go and be totally secluded by myself. There may
Hmm.
be a time where I need to say, hey Angie, give me an hour. I'm going to just be by myself, get my mind together, get my thoughts together, and then we'll come out and reengage. You know,
Right.
there's times where I need a little time like that, but what I really need in that moment is not these big social groups and whatnot. I need the people that I trust, that I can kind of let my hair down, so to speak, with,
Yep.
like my family, like my wife, my kids, maybe someone that's in my close inner circle that doesn't draw from me but actually fills me up. And a lot of times when our social stamina is feeling so low, that's what it is. We're feeling
Yep.
drained of, like, people are pulling relational nutrients out of us, and we're
Yep.
not putting back in. So, people think that they just need to get away from people. Well, yes, maybe for a little short time, but at the same time, you need the relational nutrients of the people that are closest to you. The problem is, DJ, is that a lot of people don't have those people that are really close to them. That's a challenge in
Yep.
and of itself, and a need for even, ministers and just people in general.
Agreed, for sure.
So, at what point did you realize that the issue was not discipline or effort or commitment, but it was the actual structure of your rhythm itself that had become a leadership blind spot, and you didn't see it coming, right?
Yep. I would say what's special is this kind of corresponded with me being trained by you and learning from you, getting married. So as a single guy, high extrovert, high social stamina, I'm every night of the week, I'm out. We're connecting with families. I'm teaching Bible studies. And then marriage comes in, and I'm like, oh, yeah, she just goes along with me, not realizing that that could break things. And so I had to bend, she had to bend, obviously, depending on what's going on, but to create a rhythm to say, okay, Monday night, it's our family night. That means unless it's an emergency and Pastor Johns calls me, nothing matters. I'm yours completely. We're spending time together. We're playing board games. We're going to find a new restaurant, go out to eat. We're going on coffee, something like that.
Yeah.
So I would say that was the big one. But then once again, that lesson, I had to be reminded and relearn it. Every kid, really. Now that we have 3 kids, and prayerfully we're going to have a 4th in the next few months, in the coming year or two, that I'm going to have to relearn what does that rhythm actually look like, and be guided by principles and not the pressure that goes on around. Because, for instance, when we had Kylea, that changes, because when it was Nat and I, we could just say, hey, where do you want to go on a whim? Now we got diapers and wipes, and you got so much stuff to pack, and that just adds to it. You have 3 kids, that's a van, you got to have snacks and, some kind of toy for them to play with. That's just, it's not as easy to just get up and go. So for me, it wasn't, once again, it wasn't just talent or hard work or even mindset of, ooh, we can handle it. Let's take this mountain. Yeah, in a moment, but what will it cost me? So it goes back to that general conference. We did it, preaching that Sunday after general conference. We did it. We shouldn't have, though. It wasn't necessary. Now, did we make a kingdom impact? Prayerfully, yes. But was it wise? It's not, was it wrong? It wasn't wise for our family. And
you're just pulling from an empty well.
Agreed. Yeah. So for me, that's where the rhythm happens, is if I don't have that rhythm, I'm not pouring into myself. If I don't take a few weeks off before camp, meaning preaching as much as I would the rest of the year, then I'm not creating capacity for me to fast, because I can't fast during camp, or something bad will probably happen physically, to pray, to study and get my sermon notes together, so that when I go to camp, I can play sports with kids and connect, because I don't have to study as hard, because I've done all that early. If I don't have that rhythm, then I'm going to get caught at camp, staying up late, exhausted, trying to hear from God and put something together and figure out how to present it right. And then I'm not being all that I can be for God or for the body of Christ and what he needs. So for sure, that rhythm of what does my week look like? What does my month look like? What does my year look like? Matters. And I can give you insight, kind of rhythm. So next year, I'm taking a little bit more time off in the beginning of the year, because Jeremy Stafford, a close friend of mine, is aging out. So we're going to have a new hire, a new position. Kyle Thayer potentially probably goes up to secretary, which would be great. And then there's going to be a new DOP. Well, I want to be present to make sure to train, because they're going into NAYC, to be available. That's a rhythm issue. Yeah. I could still preach out and travel and do all that stuff and exhaust myself. And we're probably going to have a 4th kid. So what's going to break, versus let me bend and say, for the first couple months, I'm not going to be gone, so that I can be here every day of the week and really connect and make sure that that person is set up for success. If not, I don't feel Congress will be as impactful, because something's off in the rhythm of life. I'm giving myself to this when I really should be focused on this. The only way to do that is to really forecast and look ahead, to say, this is coming. Let me prepare myself for it, versus, yeah, I'll preach this Sunday after general conference. That sounds great. And then we're both exhausted on the 4-hour drive home, thinking, what did we just do?
So you're giving vision to your year, basically, and trying to figure out what is sustainable. And you've learned, you've been through a couple of things over the last couple of years, and hard things.
Yeah.
But so it kind of fine tunes your vision, and you're able to look and say, okay, I need to block this section of time out. You can't block everything out. That would be nice.
Right.
Actually, it wouldn't be, but you can't block everything out. So you've got to be reasonable in that. And it's not that you're not wanting to stretch yourself. If you block some things out, you're still stretching yourself in a lot of ways. It's just you don't want to stretch yourself to a place you want to bend and not break.
But not break, yeah.
Exactly.
I think the principle that really helped define me, my pastor taught it, is your bigger yes. And this is from a book, but for instance, I got a call
Pastor
this
John's.
morning from Pastor John's. I got a call this morning asking if I can do a youth camp. Well, that week is available, but the week after I'm in Ohio, and then I skip a week, and then I'm doing another camp, and I try to space them out for my voice and health and wealth, and my family normally goes with me to camps. So I could do it, And it's hard to say no because the burden's there. I've never been to that district. I would love to go. I might even, like, there's a strong desire in me to go. And I could even say, man, I'm just going to suck it up and work hard and drink a lot more tea and do it. Or I can have a bigger yes to say, my bigger yes is I have to make sure I'm taking care of my walk with God first, my wife, then my kids, and also preparing for Ohio camp that week that I said yes to already. So maybe I can say yes to you at a later date. But my bigger yes isn't really a no to you because I don't like you or I don't care. I'm not saying no to preaching after general conference.
Yeah.
My bigger yes is I want to bend without breaking and not hurt my family or physically or something like that.
It's hard to set those boundaries as well because you don't want to disappoint people. How do you get around that? How do you get around not disappointing?
So there's some, once again, rhythm and systematic ways. Anytime a district asks me to preach and I'm unable to, I put in my calendar, declined, and I put their name. For instance, there was one district that asked me 3 times and none of the dates would work. Well, then this date, that weekend was available, but it would have been too much of being gone. So I talked to Nat and said, hey, this district has reached out a few times. Let's force it this time. I'll make sure that the next month I redeem some of that time by saying no to other things, and I'll bear the physical exhaustion of it, and I'll make it up to the family the next month. So systematic things like that. That's just an example, but the principle would be write it down, look ahead, kind of see that vision, find that rhythm, because it's not always a no. It might be a not yet, if that makes sense.
Well, and I'm also hearing that you sort of like a metronome. I reference that in my book. You're swinging out. You're allowing yourself to swing out occasionally in some seasons of your life, and it's it doesn't feel totally right, but you're allowing yourself to swing out, but you know what to swing back into. And that's what's important, because we're always going to have times of during a January, because of the times, my life is chaotic. I'm going to swing out during that time, but I have to know because of the times is over, what do I swing back to? What rhythms do I get back into so that I can re-energize, that I can have a good rhythm of life and not burn out totally. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So to your avatar that you're speaking to, that young leader, June is going to be crazy with camps, and you're more than likely bivocational. So what can you do in July to create more capacity for yourself to have rest, for your spouse, if you're married, to have some quality time, but also your kids, and then even your local church in context. So I agree with that. Looking ahead to say, I'm choosing to cheat in this moment. How can I choose to cheat the other way without overcorrecting and saying, I'm not even showing up to nothing at general conference, or I'll show up to everything? Because that's where stuff breaks, when you swing so hard versus I'll be flexible or bend a little bit as needed.
Yeah. I want to bring out something as well, if you don't mind me bringing this out. When you are out of pocket for that season, because you chose to cheat in this other season, now you're purposely setting a boundary in the next season, and maybe swinging back the other way a little bit to create space for you and your family. That can impact people around you, and they may be waiting on you to have an answer, or they need you involved in something, but you're away. You're not able to do that at that moment. What creates what maintains the influence that you have with those individuals that are waiting on you for when you do get back into pocket?
That's an exceptional question, Ryan. I would say first is, at the heart of everything, if you're an example of taking care of your priorities, having your priorities in order, knowing that balance isn't obtainable. I can't spend the equal amount of hours in all the responsibilities, but I prioritize. What's my priority today, this week, so on and so forth. When people see that, they might be disappointed that you said no to something, but they respect it overall. And so for the person who called and asked me to come to a camp this morning, I said, honestly, I want to let you know that week is available, but I'm gone the next week for camp and then another week for camp. And I just want to make sure I'm not overdoing it for the sake of my family. And though they might feel that disappointment, they're gonna feel that respect overall.
Yeah, they
There's
understand.
places that I preach to, and I'll take one of my daughters with me. And though that changes how much I can connect, they see that I am connecting as much as I can, but the respective priorities to say, wow, DJ's giving 100%. That's special and important. But once again, that's a pendulum. There, it depends where I'm going, what I'm doing. So, for instance, a new convert, let's talk local level, or a parent or a student that's like, man, I really want to spend time with the youth pastor or minister, young leader, or district. You saying no, and you don't have to explain yourself per se, but they see that you're having a healthy family, though they might be disappointed. When you do make sure to spend time with them, you're going to be a healthier you. You're going to be a more biblically, a more grounded, a more rhythmic you, which means you're going to give yourself more. If I would have told that pastor, no, I'm not preaching after general conference, let me find another day, I probably would have been a better version of DJ.
Yeah.
I probably would have not been as exhausted. Natalie would have been more open and not drained as an introvert, extrovert of spending time with people. And she might have been able to give more. Now, did we give more? 100%. We gave 100% of what we have, but really the cup was smaller because we gave ourselves so much. So really the question of how do you keep that respect or accessibility, or where people are like, man, you're there, is after Congress, I shut my phone off and people can reach out to me, but YM's here before me, YM's going to be here after me, but my family can't replace me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend time with them. And then when I come back, the respect is there because they're like, oh, you put family first.
Yeah.
And they honor that overall.
Well, and I think I heard this in your voice. You didn't specifically say this, but even in each one of those situations with people reaching out or whatever, you communicated effectively why. And that's what people really want to know, is why. Even with shutting your phone off to YM, for instance, I'm sure that you have a method of saying, hey, I'm going to be off grid for a few days. I'm shutting my phone off. You're communicating when I'm shutting my phone off and when I'm turning it back on. And that gives you permission to, that communication piece is what gives you permission to do that. And at that point, you're doing what you need to be effective in helping the situation or your disconnect to be palatable to them. And at that point, if they don't respect that, or they get their feelings hurt or whatever, that's when you say, I hate to say this, but that's on you. Your disappointment is on you. I don't like it. I don't want you to be disappointed, but at the same time, I communicated to you, and this is what I felt like was needed for the health of my family.
Yep, I agree with that. And another layer of communication I just considered is bring a solution. So I told the guy who called, hey, I can think through some evangelists that would be really good, and I'll send you their contact information. So maybe you're not facilitating that on the local level, speaking to your avatar again, but let's say you're going to protect Monday night as your date night, and there's a person that you met that is very intrigued with getting a Bible study. Maybe you say, hey, I would love to, but Monday really is my time for my wife and I. That's our family night. And I do my best to protect that unless it's emergency. So I'd love to meet you either Tuesday or Thursday. But if you're just so desperate, it's a Sunday morning, you're so desperate that you have to have a Bible study, I can connect you with 2 or 3 other people that might have availability tomorrow to really discuss that with you. But I have to do what's best for my family on Monday nights. So coming in with a solution as well, I think makes it a little bit more palatable that you're not the only answer, and that there are other solutions or avenues of access for them. That also helps that they're not always going to look to you to be the savior or redeemer, because I can't be. I am the youth president, and I understand that, but my reach only goes so far. But I can follow Jethro to Moses and say, how can I duplicate myself into other people?
Exactly. And until DJ Hill wakes up and there's a big S on his chest, Superman, until that happens, you have limits, and you have to recognize those limits, and it's so super important. I love that. And
you got to be honest when you hit those limits. I wouldn't say necessarily burnout, But when you feel like you're burning the candle on both ends, you got to be honest, and then you got to find that rhythm again, because you're starting to get to that breaking point. Even while bending, you know what? I've given a lot of time to my family, and my family and I said yes to this role. So Natalie, though it's exhausting, I got to go to this district conference to present on behalf of youth ministries. It's exhausting, but I got to do it. There's a trip this year that I wasn't planning to take, but due to circumstances, I'm having to bend a little bit harder, and my wife is in agreement, communication with her, that because of the circumstances around it, we got to facilitate that appearance, if that makes sense. So there are times where you just have to have some grit and show up and bend maybe a little bit harder while not breaking, but you got to be honest with yourself and communicate, but then make sure you're also bending church or ministry or work to give to your family or your physical health as well.
Yeah. And bringing that down to even a person's week, you know, you're talking about trips and different things, even bringing that down to a person's week. You know, I have a very structured routine and rhythm that I go through every day, every week. I work on that every week with the Christian Leader Site Planner, even those concepts. But it's there's not a week that goes by that I don't have one or two, sometimes more, of those days disrupted with something. You know, I have to bring a kid to a doctor's appointment. I have a doctor's appointment, or you know, somebody calls with a crisis at POA or whatever. You know, that stuff happens routinely. You know, so there's typically not a week that goes by that is perfect. I'm not aiming for perfection, though. But when I swing out on that day, or even 2 days sometimes, when that's done, I know what to get back to. And I think that's more important than anything, is to know what are you getting back to when that little short season or even a long season is done. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And even outside of my context, just on a local ministry level, local leadership level, potentially an effective illustration to help make this make sense is we understand this with budgeting money, that, you know, we've been really good. We want this. We want to go out to eat. We've been really good. I want to buy these shoes. We understand that bending without like going into debt, but we don't think of it as budgeting time. And to you, it's on my desk, not just because we did this podcast, but the Christian Leader Site Planner really has helped me. One, because I don't have to try to make it myself as I have in the past few years, but it's something systematically I can do. I've bought it for friends. It's been a Christmas gift this past December for a few friends. So having that allows me to budget my time, where I'm looking ahead to say, okay, this is how much time I have. Let me go ahead and allocate it, because just like money, if it's not budgeted, it goes way faster than what you can get. Time is the exact same way. So if you learn to budget time, understanding you might go to get coffee, though it's not in budget. You might have an emergency that arises as a leader that it's not in budget of your time, but that's where that flexibility, and you kind of recalibrate as needed, but you can't just make it up as you go. You're going to be in debt.
Exactly.
You're not going to save for the future. You're not going to have good retirement financially, but we don't think of that in terms of our time. I'm not going to be effective if I'm not spending quality time with my wife, if I'm not spending time with God, if I'm not exercising. And in every season, that budget of time has to change with kids, with Easter play coming up, with camp, with whatever's going on. I have to constantly look at my budget, like my wife and I do weekly and quarterly and yearly. What is our financial plans for this year? We want a new refrigerator. The ice machine is broken. We want a new refrigerator. So we looked at our year plan and say, yeah, we could just do it potentially, but is that wise? No, because what happens if the tire breaks, if this happens, if that happens? So we're planning for the year financially. We've also done that with our time. We said, okay, this is an opportunity for us as a family to do a vacation to Branson, Missouri. And a situation may arise, so then we just rebudget our time or reallocate our time. That's really what rhythm is. And you have to be able to bend with your time without destroying it. Most times we break because we haven't budgeted, we haven't thought ahead. We don't have a site planner where we know what we're doing in the week, and stuff just breaks constantly versus, okay, I can pivot and figure out a new way to manage this.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. Time budgeting. You mentioned parenting. You're, went from DJ and Natalie with one kid, that's my avatar, to DJ and Natalie with three kids, and one hopefully in the near future. How did this season stretch you emotionally, like your emotional awareness, especially when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're running on E? How does that impact your rhythm?
Immensely, because once again, I can't operate as if it was just one kid or just Nat and I or just me, myself. I've had to adjust in that season or reallocate to find the new rhythm. What does that look like? That's tough because I haven't always done well at it. And it's more of a principle of ideals that I try to live to.
Yeah. That's hard. It is. If you don't mind me interrupting you here.
Yeah.
That is one of the hardest things. I coach a lot of ministry leaders. That's probably one of the top things that people deal with is the what comes out of them when they're tired, stressed, and running on E. Not in their churches, because they reel it back and they soften it when they get in their churches. It's at home.
Yep.
That's challenging.
Yeah, my daughter convicted me. We did a commitment challenge at the beginning of a year, and one of my commitments was to be more patient. Mm-hmm. You can imagine with three kids at this time, three and a half, 1.5, and then a newborn, lack of sleep, the craziness, schedules, like so much going on, like just the anarchy in the house. The middle one is like me. She has my energy. Ira, she'll jump off the bed, the couch, like, she will run through a brick wall.
I saw that in Mississippi this year.
Oh, yeah. I love Ira. She is full send all day. And one time I was trying to tell my oldest to do something and not yelling or being too harsh, but being impatient, frankly. And, I try to be honest and transparent and vulnerable with you and with whoever's going to listen to this. And she said, "Dad, I thought you was going to work on that this year." Now, first, work on it means not perfection. She doesn't fully understand that, but I can't use that as an excuse to let me off the hook. That stung. And I had to reevaluate. When I get home, am I giving more to my ministry or job or anything else than I'm giving to my family? Mm-hmm. So when I look ahead at the week and prayerfully know what's going on, and there's blind sides in leadership for sure. Okay, I'm going to make sure that the end of my workday, if I can control it, or go on an extra ride or go get coffee or something on the way home, so that when I get home, I'm giving 110% to my family. I don't ever want to give my family leftovers.
Yeah.
But I have to, look in the mirror and be honest to say, am I doing that or not?
What does that look like? You say you're giving 110%, and I happen to know you are an excellent dad. I've seen it firsthand, but in your interactions with them. But what does that look like?
Hey, leaders, I'm interrupting the podcast to remind you, if you feel stuck, scattered, or just unsure of just how to grow your leadership, then the Christian Leader Self-Assessment is your starting point. It's free, and in just 10 minutes, you'll get a personalized snapshot of your leadership health, showing you where you're thriving and where you need to focus next. So go to ryanfranklin.org or click the link in the description and take the self-assessment today. And now, let's get back to our podcast.
So practically when I get home, serving here at YM, I'd say an average probably 60 plus hours of work a week. Mm-hmm. And so when I get home, I put my phone on the wardrobe thing in our living room because I don't want to be on it. Mm-hmm. I've answered my phone calls, I've answered my emails. Now, before the end of the night, I'll check, and I'll systematically check, obviously. We'll dance and listen to music and Disney princess songs. So I'll see notifications to see if it's needed, but I don't have any social media notifications turned on. Mm-hmm. I have like do not disturb. So there's systematic things that help me not get too distracted. But when I get home, I have a site plan that I know that unless something happens, that this is kind of the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And I play and I say, okay, Nat, do you want me to help with dinner? Am I cooking dinner tonight? And I would have already known that. I already have the groceries. Am I helping clean, or am I playing and distracting the girls so you can kind of cook in peace while you're starting to prep dinner? So I'll go downstairs and we'll play whatever they want to play. We're dressing up, we're hanging out. It's like 30 minutes of quality time. I don't have my phone unless they want to play music. I'm not on social media. I'm not checking emails. I'm not answering the phone. Now, sometimes that breaks, but that has to be a pretty big emergency. That's not just, hey, can you come preach? You can wait to ask me. Leave a voicemail. I'll look at it to see.
Yeah.
And there's like, if Brother Bernard, Pastor John's, my in-laws, certain people can call and I'll answer and say, hey, like Kyle Thayer can call. I'll be like, hey, I'm playing with the girls. Do you need me or can I call you back later? Because there's a list of people that can call me and I'll respond as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So we play and then afterwards we sit down and we eat dinner together at least 4 to 5 times a week. How's your day? We talk. Afterwards, hey girls, let's clean up. Now, this takes a lot longer because kids don't do good at cleaning up. To help take out the trash, help do dishes, but it's quality time. It gives Nat a chance to sit down. She's been running around all day. Then we, depending on what's going on, swim class, piano class, we do the things. Then we put them to bed, and then Nat and I have our quality time where we sit in the living room, we talk, catch up on the day, and then I normally go and check my emails, read, do anything that I need there, and then spend more quality time before going to bed. So that's kind of systematic, what's going on, thinking ahead.
So I'm hearing in your voice, I'm hearing you are connecting individually with your kids, all 3 kids.
And intentionally.
Playing what they want to play. So you're communicating with them each individually. You know, they're on different ages, different levels. So you've got to, depending on the kids, you've got to do different. But you're, as they get older and they can have conversations, it's individual conversations with them, checking on them. How's your day? What went on in your day? What's frustrated you today? What are you happy about today? That kind of stuff. But you're also doing the same thing when you put them to bed with Natalie. And does that take a long time to do that?
Sometimes we kind of have a rhythm.
Yeah.
But we kind of got it to a T. So because we know what's coming up, are you taking care of the older 2 or the younger one?
Yeah.
And we kind of rotate depending on what's going on. Or am I taking all 3 and she's cleaning, or am I cleaning? But that's, once again, we know what's going on ahead so that we can live that out.
But even, after the kids are gone to bed, you've cleaned everything up, everything's in order, and you're sitting down on the couch and you're looking each other in the eye or whatever, and you're having a conversation. My point is here, and I think you would agree with this, it doesn't take long. You can connect and you can do that for 5 minutes and it's very valuable. I would assume that there's some times where, you get into conversation, it's an hour, but you can do it for 5 minutes, and that's valuable relational nutrients that you're giving her and she's giving you, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So Kalea, our oldest, 10 minutes of playing, we're going to play Barbie, and I'm on the ground and we're playing Barbie and driving the car. And then, okay, I'm going to go check in on Ira. And maybe she's like, a few more minutes. And once again, that bending, not breaking, but then she's full. And because of that, that allows me to give myself to others versus I'm never pouring into them. But that really, I think that's more of a mindset of knowing that that's coming, which allows me to be able to do it. That has to be a part of my rhythm.
Yeah. So DJ, you have a crazy travel schedule, ministry demands, stressful decisions you've got to make at the office. And, when you make a decision, you're going to please somebody and hurt somebody else's feelings or what. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. And sometimes that can kind of creep into your life where it feels like, guilt or frustration or exhaustion. And, that's going to, at times, start to drift into driving your reactions. How do you recognize that and course correct?
So the greatest is marriage is the mirror. My wife can let me know. And I give her permission, obviously not that she needs it or it's mine to give, to speak to that.
Great litmus
But then
test.
second is your life team. Your book speaks to that. I have people that as stuff is going on, I'll call and say, hey, what do you feel about this? How, help me out, or I need relational nutrients, to be honest there, and speak to it. So I would say for sure my wife, who is obviously a part of my life team, but
Your
I can't just let all the burden. Yeah, I can't let all the burden fall on her. That's not healthy for her.
Speak to that.
So
Speak to that a little bit more. You can't
So
let
there's
all of
things,
the burden be on her.
Yeah. So for instance, making decisions people won't like.
Yeah.
Let's take it local church level because it applies everywhere. It's scalable. We decided to do this, and Sister Jane Doe is extremely offended. I might not need to give that to my wife, even in venting, because she might not be needing to handle that in that moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to give it to Ryan first to let off some of that steam, because she has to do life with Sister Jane.
Yeah.
And I don't want her to only hear the negative. I want her to be able to hear some of that positive too. So I got to be wise to say, my wife is not responsible for carrying the weight of everything that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well,
that's not fair to her. So I have to spread that load out, and even sometimes only give it to God and process it with God before I even spread it out, to make sure I'm not just lashing out emotionally.
Well, and sometimes Natalie's dealing with the same thing you're dealing with, and it's got her emotions stirred, and then you're about to dump your stuff on her too. She's carrying hers and carrying yours. Sometimes it's not sustainable for somebody to only have a spouse as a life. In fact, not sometimes. It's never sustainable for your spouse to be your only life team member. Now, my spouse is going to know the most about me, and likely at some point she's going to know everything, even if I have to tell her after I kind of go through it. But I'm not hiding anything from her. But at the same time, I don't want to dump all of my emotional load on her. And it actually becomes a comfort to Angie to know that I've got other people in my world. I could pick up the phone and call DJ and, unload something on him, and he's going to help me work through it. He's going to give me containment or acceptance or validation or encouragement or advice or whatever the relational nutrient, the relational need is. And I'm going to process that stuff, get back to, sort of a normal emotional rhythm, and then share it with Angie and say, hey, I just want you to know I dealt with this. DJ was there for me, helped me through it. But, that's an important part of life, is to have that life team, and not many people have it.
Yeah. And the reality is, I think the word that we used to use is compartmentalize, but that's impossible. I am who I am. I'm one just like God is one. So what happens at YM affects me at home. Now, I shouldn't let it negatively affect, but it's going to either way. So versus just burying it and act like, oh, that's YM DJ, this is preaching out DJ, this is daddy DJ, that's weird. And you can't live duplicitous.
Yeah.
But if there's something like after this call, let's say something happens and it's a wound or a hurt, maybe I don't need to give it to my wife, but I can't just say, oh, I'm going to compartmentalize it. I got to give it to somebody.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it's going to show up at home, and she's then frustrated with me, like, why are you short? Why are you snappy? Why are you not sleeping good? Why are you impatient? Why this? Why that? And I'm not explaining it to her because she doesn't need to know everything, which is right to an extent. But then I'm just not a healthy DJ.
Yeah.
I'm not the best version of me that I can. So, compartmentalizing really isn't wise. To me, it's finding that life team member to say, man, this is going on. I was treated this way. I was misunderstood, or man, I feel like I didn't do good.
Yeah. Because
then that helps. So let's say at a camp, I feel like, man, I did not do good in this service. We could talk Mississippi. I just like to be vulnerable, and I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
There was, after one service, I was like, God moved, but I was like, man, I feel like my presentation wasn't as sharp as what I wanted it to be. And I told you that. And I could have told Nat that, but she would have felt that. And then she's watching the kids and hanging out with young ladies, and she has a session. She would have been distracted trying to give me relational nutrients. instead of doing what she needs to do in that moment, in that camp. And instead I can give it to you and you help me work through it. And then I remember the next service, I can tell you the message and everything. You came to me in the middle of the altar. That was a masterpiece of a message. You need to preach that everywhere you go. And so my wife, I could tell her after that, but she was being able to minister unencumbered and not distracted or having to give part of herself to me at that camp, because she wasn't my only person I had to dump everything on or work stuff through or get relational nutrients from, nor did I just hold it and that affect me in the pulpit or connecting with young people. I have to give it out. So that life team definitely helps that. But I think that's a part of the rhythm. I think, systematic checkups, but also organic checkups has to be rhythm, where every general conference, I know I'm getting coffee with you. Now that might only be 30 minutes at some time, but that's a part of my rhythm that helps me. Before preaching Congress, I want you and my life team with me in a room and we're snacking, hanging out a few hours before, because I'm getting that relational nutrients that brings me confidence to be a healthy version of me, to be the best I can be for that week. That's rhythm. I can't just say, oh, it's Congress, I'm preaching tonight. Where's my rhythm or where's my relational nutrients? I can't be reactive. Rhythm solves that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So just curious, DJ, how do you discern the difference between just a hard season that, requires endurance and, oh no, I need to course correct. This is an unhealthy rhythm that just snuck into my life, and it requires honest, something that requires some honest change within you. That's a hard line to see at times when you're living in the weeds of life and ministry. And I can tell you, I have to course correct routinely. At least once a quarter, I'm looking at my rhythm and goals and what my routines and things of that nature are like. But how do you discern the difference between just a hard season and something that needs to be course corrected?
So I would use that analogy of finances again. Something breaking is a hard season. You being a poor steward is not you're creating a tough season. So you need to press order into disorder.
Yeah.
So the same is true for time. Did I just get blindsided? There's 5 deaths at the church this month, and that just threw off our plans. Okay, you can't control that. But if I'm not having boundaries and letting people call me late at night, so I'm not playing with my daughters, I'm saying yes to every preaching invitation, I'm not having quality time with God or my family, I'm not taking time for myself, and it's within reason that I can control that, not that I don't like the word control too much, but that I can manage that, then that's a me problem. So if I can't control my schedule as much as I can, that's a me problem. If Brother Bernard steps in my office like, hey, I need you, for instance, this happened a few weeks ago. They needed some data from YM, Brother Graham and Brother Bernard, and it needed to be expedited. Well, that's not something that I could say I have a bad rhythm. That's just life and it happens. So I got to go and work on that, pull a couple staff members in. So are you missing date nights consistently? Are you missing prayer time consistently? Are you missing exercise consistently? Quality time with your kids consistently? Are you missing work or church consistently? Outside of acts of God or storms or death or something that you can't control, then that means that's a me problem. So that's, I would say, the first level of discerning it is, am I just not being a wise steward or budgeting my time?
Yeah.
Then the second goes back to that life team. My life team is honest with me to say, I have a few people that have my calendar and they could say, you know what, you're pushing the limits a little too much. But then there's a reason why of, my wife and I said yes to this because we've never been there. And she really said yes. I said no. She said, no, we're going because I want to go there kind of thing. And we go. And then they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You're bending and it's going to swing this way, but you intentionally swung that way.
Yeah.
That would be my last point I would say is are you intentionally allowing the disorder or are you not? Because if it's just disorder because of chaos, that's bad.
Yeah.
If life happens, then it's not.
Yeah. But if you're intentional with it, that's not an issue because you're intentional.
Yep.
But also this just hit me and I don't know that I've ever thought of it in this way, but is it mostly, is your rhythm mostly good? Or is it mostly disrupted?
That's a great question.
You know, looking at a day, looking at a week, looking at a month, was it mostly good? Did I feel good about all of those things that you mentioned? Relationships, physical life, spiritual life, all of those things. Was it mostly good? Or was there even an area in that was not mostly good? And do I need to course correct? So that was good, DJ. I like that.
Yeah. No, that's a great framework to think of it as. And sometimes it's not good out of your control, but if you're just neglecting being a steward of your time, then it's not a good rhythm for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great litmus test.
So as we bring this to a close, for leaders that may be listening right now, what would you say would be the most prominent leadership blind spot when it comes to rhythm? And you may have already named it, I don't know, but what would you say is the most prominent blind spot, and what is one small adjustment that they could make to begin closing that particular gap in their life?
Answering this moves me emotionally because sometimes you don't always like the answer, Ryan. But I would say open lines of communication is, can my daughter tell me, Daddy, you're doing too much? Is my wife feel liberty? She has the right to, and she should, but will I receive it and actually hear it for her saying, you're gone too much, or you're bringing work home? Because there was a time,
not receiving it.
There was a time she said, DJ, this is once again first year of being here at YM, so trying to adjust and figure life out. And has said it since, and I have to receive that. Hey, if you're going to keep working, just go back to the office.
Wow.
It don't feel good, but I have to allow my life team to not just carry burdens or give me relational nutrients, because part of the relational nutrients, the 4 quadrants, is advice, and that advice might sting.
Yeah.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend. And it hurt, but I never put my phone down and kept my laptop in my bag until I put the girls to bed, until Nat said, DJ, if you're just going to work from home, just go back to the office.
Wow.
Because I was not at home spending time with my family. I was at home checking emails and answering calls, and the kids are like, Daddy's home, and I'm distracted, and they feel frustration. She feels frustration, and I'm at a bad rhythm of my life. And so can my pastor call me out and say, you're not spending enough time in ministry. You're playing too many video games. You're doing too many hobbies. That's a bad rhythm. Not that hobbies are wrong, but you're not giving yourself to this. Can your wife call you out? Can your friend call you out and say, you're giving too much of this and not enough to this?
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not a fun answer to hear.
Well, and taking that to the blind spot, it would be, the opposite of allowing that would be a defensive response. Like, Natalie say that to you, and you all of a sudden get moody with her. And
I'm trying to win the world. This is what I'm elected to do. Yeah. And I think the blind spot is even, unfortunately, bigger than that for a lot of leaders. They're not even aware that somebody wants to communicate to them.
Yeah.
Or there is a lack of communication. They're just kind of tunnel vision, and they don't realize the collateral damage around them, that people are crying out for help. Kids are like, Daddy, we want to play with you. They don't even, we don't even register that.
Yeah. They're to the point where they just quit calling out. And they avoid their father altogether.
Yep.
Or their spouse altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they give up.
This has been tremendous, DJ. Anything else that you want to share with the listeners before we wrap up here?
I would say the hard work, let's take it back to the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Talent, hard work is not going to do it. It has to be rhythm. And so if you want to be healthy and do more for God while simultaneously doing more for your relationship with God first, relationship with your spouse second, relationship with your kids third, and then ministry fourth, you can do more. You can grow your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to do it is to make sure you have a rhythm that bends and doesn't break. Just like finances, you can save and you can enjoy good life and go on vacation, but you got to be a wise steward. The same is true for time. We have to start looking at time to say, how am I investing? How am I spending? How am I managing my time? Rhythm is the answer. Budget is the answer for finances. Rhythm is the answer for time. Knowing certain seasons, it might be different or chaotic or prioritized at Congress. We're not doing a date night. I don't want to do date night with 36,000 people. That'd be miserable. That week is not about date night with my wife. My priority is the students. Unless she absolutely needs me, then for sure she has my attention. But that's that pendulum swinging back and forth. But I have to know it's swinging. I have to be intentional with the swing versus it just being chaotic and unrhythmic. I love that word even more, that pendulum swing, that rhythm, that rhythm. I have to be controlling the rhythm. And if it's going too quick, I need to slow it down. Or maybe this is a season where we're in revival and it's bot time. I might need to pick it up, but knowing that it's going to slow down later. But I need to be the one controlling that metronome. Really, God, through me and conviction and my life team, needs to be the one controlling that rhythm of life.
I love that, DJ. Build a rhythm that just sort of bends in the pressures without breaking. I love that. This has been so good. Before we close here, I just want you to tell people a little bit about your book. Give me the title again, where people can find it, kind of a synopsis of what it's about. I'd love for people to get that.
Yeah. So my book is titled A Celebration of Creation, an Apostolic View of Identity and Gender.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and the Bible is clear that says that in the beginning, God made man and woman in his image. And we're not in competition with the other gender. We actually complement each other, because though there are a lot of similarities, there's divine distinctions that God gave, divine characteristics from himself that he gave to men, and then some that he gave to women, that together we can really impact the church, the world, and our home. And we are better together. And that's worth celebrating. We don't need to criticize the other gender or criticize nuances, all that stuff. Really, I go through history, I go through science, and ultimately the Bible to try to articulate to the best of my ability the great celebratory things about men and the great celebratory things about women. That there are some similarities, but there are some great differences, because men and women are different biologically down to every nucleated cell. You can buy that book at Pentecostal Resources Group. You just type in A Celebration of Creation, PRG, PPH, but A Celebration of Creation, DJ Hill on Google, and you'll find it. And then you can obviously find me on Instagram, DJ Hill 706, repping Georgia, my home. Still, I haven't changed that handle to a Missouri number. And then on Facebook, DJ Hill. I'd love to connect with you. Let's do life together. That's the beauty of the body of Christ.
I'll link to your book. And I just want to say, very well written. You did a tremendous job of writing that book, and everybody needs to get that book and check it out, and buy it for your kids as well, your teenage kids or your adults. It's or your adult kids. It's a tremendous book, tremendous resource that I don't think is spoken to by anybody else among us, is it? That subject.
There's some articles written and a couple pages here and there, but not a whole work or an authored book.
Yeah, but I'll put links in the show notes to the book, also to your social media handles. DJ, thank you so much for joining us today. That, you know what, your honesty and your perspective is contagious. I love it. I really appreciate it. It means a ton to me that you'd take your time to be on the show today.
Well, I appreciate your friendship, and thank you for being on my life team and helping to develop a rhythm. The impact that I've made, obviously, you gave me honor. It's my pastor, Urshan, so many people, but I'm thankful that you're around that Knights of the Round Table that ensure that I have that good metronome and good rhythm. That bends a lot, but thank you for helping me not break.
Thank you, DJ. I love you. So this wraps up our show today. My name is Ryan Franklin. Thank you so much for joining us on the Christian Leader Made Simple show. God bless.